Hello and welcome everyone to the session today. We're going to just jump right in and get started. I'm pleased to welcome Krystle Olson from Shopify to the stage. Krystle, thank you for being here today. I am very much looking forward to hearing the story of how a tweet launched 2,000 roles at Shopify. So I'll just hand it over to you to get started.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And honestly, thank you so much to the GEM team for having me here, and also for everyone who's here giving their attention. Really appreciate it. So before we get into the nuts and bolts of this talk, I'd like to tell you a tiny bit about me, my team, and what we do here at Shopify. So I'm Krystle. I am a lapsed botanist and evolutionary theorist turned recruitment lead. Turns out that my parents were pretty right. There's not a lot of work in evolutionary theory outside of academia, so my one rebellious act didn't exactly pan out as planned. However, panned out pretty well. I've been with Shopify for a little over 5.5 years now, and I am extremely grateful that this company recognized potential in me and took a chance on someone who had zero experience in recruiting or in tech and had a bunch of transferable research skills and experience. I joined as the recruitment researcher number 4, i.e. talent sourcer, in 2016, and I honestly had no idea how much my career or my life would change following that decision. Fast forward to now, I lead a team that is multidisciplinary of 54 people with 8 incredible leads and a senior talent intelligence researcher in my first team, as Lara Hogan describes. You'll hear more about 2 of these leaders in just a couple minutes. So about talent attraction, this concept started percolating in my lead, Tim Koo Jones's mind about 20-ish months ago or so. And basically he had this idea where there are 2 distinct yet related activities within a talent acquisition team, one being talent attraction and the other being talent selection. So talent selection is the domain of recruiters. So these are the folks who are choosing the right potential Shopify folk to enter the interview process and then guiding them through said process. Whereas talent attraction, on the other hand, is far more complex. The responsibility on this side of the house is to view the whole of the global talent market as potential future Shopify folk and to identify and attract the best folks to join Shopify to build the products for our merchants wherever they happen to live in the world. This distinction between the 2 groups allows each to do their best work, focusing on the craft that they are most passionate about, and they necessarily overlap with each other to create a seamless partnership. Now, of course, talent attraction is part of a broader talent acquisition function at Shopify, which means that candidates are ultimately at the center of everything we do. As I mentioned before, this org is rather complex, but can be thought of as 2 overarching groups: the teams who are directly engaging and interacting with candidates, and the teams who are indirectly influencing candidate behavior. In terms of the first group, referred to as the top of funnel teams, these are the folks who, again, are directly engaging candidates. They include the external recruitment partnerships team, which covers all manner of partnerships, including agency partnerships, community partnerships, and our alumni program. We have the inbound talent sourcing team, who are the folks who work with applicants and referrals, and also own logistics and experimentation with our job postings. We have the outbound talent sourcing team, the team that finds and engages those folks who don't yet know that Shopify is the next step in their career. And finally, we have the referral care program, which is closely tied to the inbound talent sourcing team. They ensure that this vital program is easy and trustworthy for Shopify folk and their referrals alike. Now we have the outer layer, which is a second group that influences candidate behavior and also informs Shopify's business decisions across the board with external talent market information. So the first team here is called Talent Intelligence, which began as talent market research back in 2020. They produce research that informs new entity builds, M&A decisions from both a talent assessment lens and proactive mapping of new potential acquisitions. They inform executive search targeting and approaches. And finally, they guide all of the talent attraction team's work too. Next up, we have employer brand marketing, and we are so lucky to have an embedded, fully stacked marketing team as part of our org. This team includes brand, social, creatives, and growth folks, and you might have seen some of Shopify's meme content on LinkedIn over the past year. Well, that's this crew. They're pretty great. And then finally, in this area, we have the talent attraction UX team, which is honestly another thank our lucky stars group. This is a team of designers and front-end developers who embedded in the talent attraction org who create all of our digital assets, including the Shopify careers page, the landing pages, and paid campaign assets. Now, all of these teams work together to bring the best talent to Shopify. But how does our work ladder up to Shopify's mission to make commerce better for everyone? Well, pretty easily, to be honest. The pandemic crystallized Shopify's raison d'etre more than ever before. Toby, our CEO, said plainly in April of 2020 that none of us are doctors or nurses or teachers, and we can't affect the medical or educational outcomes of this pandemic. But we're in the commerce business, and we have a real opportunity to affect the economic outcomes for myriad people around the world, and the responsibility to build for them as quickly and as well as possible. Of course, Shopify's products and services are only as good as the people who are building them, and the talent attraction team takes this responsibility to heart. We all work to ensure that Shopify has the healthiest and most representative candidate funnels possible that will in turn translate to the best folks joining. These are the people who will build and create for the merchants of today and of the future. And now, the rest of the story. So 2020 was the year that the team I just described assembled like Voltron. Throughout the year, different elements of talent attraction came together and became collectively stronger than we were before. 2020 was also a year. COVID-19 took hold of the world and everything changed. But our teams rallied because, again, we all took our responsibility to Shopify's current and future merchants to heart and wanted to do well by them. We knew that there was one gigantic change on the horizon for the talent acquisition team at Shopify. In January 2021, Shopify was migrating from its previous ATS to Smart Recruiters. There are a lot of factors that led to this decision, and anyone who's been through a migration like this knows it's a decision that you don't come to lightly. We knew there were going to be bumps in the road in the early days following the migration, but our team was confident that we'd all get there. Still, after a hugely successful BFCM, which is Black Friday, Cyber Monday, the whole of the TA team was looking forward to winding down the year, a much needed break, and the chance to hit 2021 refreshed and recharged. And then this happened. December 1st, 2020, Jean-Michel, Shopify's former CTO, announced to the world that we would double our engineering org in the coming year. 2,021 engineers in 2021. Just let that sink in for a second. And then came the second wave realization that this is not just about engineering. In order to support this massive influx of engineers that were coming in the coming year, and all that they would build and create for merchants, Shopify needed to grow across all other disciplines in concert. So we're talking support, product, UX, go-to-market. Oh gosh, our own teams in talent acquisition. So I'm not going to lie, the first day or two after that announcement came out was a little bit like this. And then it was time to get to work. One thing we knew for sure, we were not going to achieve this goal by doing what we had done before, and we needed a plan. We quickly identified that we needed to invest in 3 key areas if we were going to get this right. So first, we needed to welcome more incredibly talented individuals across every part of talent acquisition, from growth marketers to sourcers to recruiters. We needed to bring in the best tools to augment and enhance our team's work, both in terms of ways of working and from a data integrity and availability perspective. And finally, we could not do this alone. We needed to empower leaders across Shopify to understand and participate in top-of-funnel recruitment. So there are loads of things that I could tell you about how we set these plans in motion, but I want to focus on 2 pivotal company-wide programs. They are championed by outbound sourcing leaders on my team and touch on those 3 areas of investment. I am thrilled to introduce you to Mackenzie Bartlett, who is lead for the engineering and data sourcing team, and Ali Harji, lead for the commercial, G&A, and support sourcing team. Mackenzie has been with Shopify for 3.5 years, and she's been a powerhouse the entire time. She champions the leader sourcing program. And Ali has been with Shopify for 5 years and is the veritable Swiss Army knife on the team. He champions the commercial sourcing program. So before we go into more detail about what each of these programs entail, I want to tell you briefly why Mackenzie and Ali are the right folks to champion these programs. So again, I said Mackenzie is a powerhouse, and she truly is. She has a knack for building and maintaining strong, trusting relationships with hiring managers and leaders across engineering. She also has an uncanny ability to notice patterns across different parts of the business and build for a more general case than one would have imagined at the outset. And finally, she is a change management queen. She both understands and builds program launches and iterations like nobody's business. I wanted Mackenzie to be the face and voice of this program, both for the reasons I just shared, and to ensure that leaders, especially in R&D, but also just across Shopify in general, know and understood her level of technical expertise in the sourcing craft. This level of visibility helps her build even more trust and credibility with the business, and in turn allows her to be a better partner to these leaders. Now, Allie has a unique perspective on the talent attraction team, being the only person partnered and embedded in non-R&D spaces for the majority of his time here. He's run the gamut from business development and partnerships, talent, all manner of commercial and go-to-market, and most recently executive search, and understands the nuance and specificity these searches entail. He's also been instrumental in sourcing many of the leaders he and his team are now partnered with, which affords him a high level of trust with these teams. It shouldn't be any surprise why Ali is championing this program. He's clearly the person with the most understanding of these parts of the business. I've taken an intentional step back from conversations with partnered leaders on the talent selection side of the house as Ali builds this program to ensure that these partners and stakeholders understand that Ali is their person and that communication needn't be proxied through me. Of course, I'm always here to support and sponsor these two leaders, but I truly want them to be seen for the strong leaders they are by the business through the championing of these programs. Okay, so now that you're acquainted with the champions of the program, let's get into what they're actually building. I'll do this in a particularly novel way of walking you through the what, the who, the why, and the how of these program builds, along with the impact that these programs have had on Shopify and on the leader who champions them. First up, the Leader Sourcing Program. So what does this program entail? In brief, it provides all 2,000 plus leaders across Shopify with the training, tooling, and ongoing support to find and engage prospective candidates as though they were actually a part of the talent attraction team. We wanted to make this program as lightweight and modular as possible, knowing that these leaders honestly have limited time to spend on these recruiting activities. Mackenzie outlined 2 goals that were pivotal to the program's success: that contributing to proactive or outbound attraction activities be as frictionless and simple for leaders as possible, and to ensure that leaders' sourcing and candidate engagement activities flowed well into the overall recruiting processes. These goals required higher permission levels in Smart Recruiters, ready access to top-of-funnel recruiting tools for all leaders, and a seamless handover of engaged candidates. I'll share more about those details in just a moment. So who was this program built for? Initially, we built this for strictly the R&D hiring managers who wanted to be more directly involved in top-of-funnel recruiting. Fast forward to today, with 4 iterative builds behind us, and this is now a company-wide program, as I mentioned, available to all leaders in both the people and technical leadership tracks. But why did we build it? Well, we're incredibly fortunate to have a very engaged leadership population at Shopify who want to build a 100-year company and care deeply about making the paths to entrepreneurship as easy and simple as possible. These leaders view recruiting as a shared responsibility and wanted to participate in whatever ways they could. The program began with a conversation with Delaney Manders, one of our VPs of engineering, wherein she identified that leaders on her team are actively engaged in spaces on the internet not frequented by or even accessible to recruiters and sourcers, and that this could be a particularly novel opportunity for leaders to introduce talent pools to Shopify. Mackenzie quickly recognized that we should build a program around this opportunity rather than simply creating resources for one subset of the engineering organization, and set to work with me on the R&D hiring manager sourcing program. Okay, so remember the tweet, TM? This was both a huge challenge and responsibility, and one that was held by TA and all leaders in the company. In a conversation between Janine Spears, who's a VP of Talent, and Farhan Thawar, a VP of Engineering, Janine made the following call to action. I think we've got about 2,000 leaders in this channel. So if everyone that's in this channel took a moment to source a candidate, that would be a huge number and a huge lift for our funnel. Honestly, this kind of engagement is incredibly exciting, but it also exploded the scope of the original program. Okay, so how did we build a company-wide program from something that was relatively small? We set to work taking on the MVP of the R&D hiring manager sourcing program to move it to the entire leadership community. Honestly, this first decision was a super easy one. We decided to house all program resources in our in-house built wiki called the Vault. This is the central source of truth at Shopify and the first place that a leader would go for information. Next, in terms of training, we needed to make sure that leaders were able to get up to speed on both sourcing best practices and how to use the tools they would gain access to through the program. Based on great advice from our learning and development team, Mackenzie created a bridge course that requires about 30 minutes to complete and provides a solid overview of the most important context for a leader getting started. Bridge was a great choice also because it provides strong analytics on the back end, which allow us to improve the content. Tooling came up next. In the previous versions of the program, leaders were already granted higher access permissions than smart recruiters so that they could knowledgeably see what had happened with candidates in the past. We wanted to avoid any missteps that come with not having enough context on the previous interactions, and increasing those permissions was a great way to share that information and to increase trust between talent attraction and business leaders. They also held full recruiter seats as part of our LinkedIn Recruiter enterprise license so that they would have the same search capabilities as any member on the TA team should they want to source on LinkedIn. And the final, and I dare say the most important piece of the puzzle is GEM. So remember how I mentioned previously that these leaders have limited time to engage in these activities, regardless of how much they value them? I can guarantee that we wouldn't have been able to scale the program as quickly as we did without GEM. GEM honestly allows all participating leaders an incredible amount of access to ongoing top-of-funnel recruiting activities. We use shared projects and sequences by default for our sourcing and engagement efforts so that leaders and sourcers can see each other's work and learn from each other asynchronously. Engaging prospects is easier than ever, which helps with the bottleneck that often comes between sourcing and then reaching out to folks. And honestly, leaders like sourcers can see the fruits of their labor through comprehensive outreach analytics. And I need to pause here for a second and give a huge shout out to John Fisher at GEM for his incredible partnership in bringing GEM to Shopify. His willingness and enthusiasm for running live training sessions with talent acquisition and business leaders alike was key to this program's launch. The program also includes many in-house developed tools and resources such as the Diversity Sourcing Toolkit, the brainchild of another leader on talent attraction, Julia Hurlman, a visual Boolean guide for those who are new to the craft, and X-ray search basics. Leaders in the business have also contributed to the program resources by creating video guides and one-pagers based on what they personally found helpful. And finally, in terms of workflows and support, we knew that a 30-minute training course and accompanying documentation wouldn't suffice for a company that grows and changes as frequently as Shopify. So we created a Slack channel for program participants to ask their questions and share tips with each other. Mackenzie, being the whiz she is, created Slack workflows for candidate handovers. Once a candidate had their call with a leader and both are interested in moving forward, the leader simply fills out a short form with the candidate information and a member of the sourcing team picks them up to move them into the next stage of the recruitment process. It's pretty great. The other thing is that we wanted to make sure that this program also meshes well with other complementary programs, such as the interview training program, the referral care program, and our internal leadership training program. So we connected with all of these program managers to ensure that the programs referenced each other and clearly outlined where they overlapped and where they diverged. Okay, so now that you know a bit about the who's and the what's and the whys and the hows of this program, what's the impact actually been on Shopify? First of all, over 480 leaders have enrolled in and participate in the program so far, with more enrolling every day. 24% participation in a program that's only launched to the entire leader population in June. It's not too shabby. Secondly, at Shopify, we always strive to build products and programs that delight those who use them, whether they are internal or external audiences. And it's pretty safe to say that we've definitely done that with this program based on these pings. And now, recall that these leaders are proactively finding prospective candidates through this program. This is intentionally distinct from referring folks they already know. Through their sourcing efforts, 70 new Shopify have joined teams across Shopify in 2021. 70 new Shopify who weren't considering Shopify as the next step in their career before a leader reached out to them. It's pretty great. And now flipping to the impact on Mckenzie as a leader. Honestly, I've observed her grow in confidence coming into her own as a people leader. She's a trusted expert, and she's now influencing company-wide decisions on ways of working. She's called upon for her insights and opinions by leaders in talent and R&D alike, and she's now known as the voice of R&D sourcing Shopify. Okay, now we're going to switch gears and move over to the commercial sourcing program. Okay, so what does this program entail? Before we go too deeply, I want to call it a shorthand that I'm going to use throughout this description. I'll be referring to it as the commercial sourcing program, but honestly, it encompasses so much more. This program is expanding the scope of outbound sourcing beyond the R&D space to include the following high-level groups at Shopify. So we have commercial, which includes revenue, growth, and marketing. We have standalone products that include Shopify Fulfillment Network and Shop. We have G&A, which includes legal, finance, and talent. And we have support. So as I mentioned before, Ali has been a dedicated partner to these teams basically since he started at Shopify. And he's built the seed of this team and this program, taking lessons learned from the scaling of the R&D sourcing side and then adapting them to this context. His team partners on some of the toughest roles across these groups, from individual contributors up to executive search. All of this kicked off in January of this year, with the first commercial sourcer joining the team at the start of 2021. Okay, so now that we know the what, who has this program been built for? Well, in short, hiring managers on the non-R&D side of the business. Shopify has both pipeline teams and rec-based teams, and many of the teams on the commercial side are rec-based. So in this situation, we honestly see the power of the trifecta working together to solve the search, being the sourcer, the recruiter, and the hiring manager. Okay, so why did we build it? Honestly, Shopify's core principles on making profit are the following. 1, build the best product to make commerce better for everyone. 2, make profits so we can do more of 1. And 3, never, ever reverse 1 and 2. So again, everything that Shopify builds and does is in service to merchants. Their success is our success. And in order to ensure that we are able to expand the platform to meet the needs of current and future merchants, we need to build the teams that bring Shopify to market, the teams that build the teams, and I'll keep us all in check, of course, and those that ensure merchants are as well cared for as possible. So in a product-led company like Shopify, it's super easy to focus on R&D alone, and we've honestly done that here for years. However, commercial, G&A, and support are incredibly complex and competitive spaces that are sometimes overlooked. Based on past experience, we know that these searches are accelerated through this trifecta-style partnership and wanted to extend the same level of partnership that R&D has benefited from to these parts of the business. Okay, so how did we actually build it? So Ali first formulated a loose set of criteria for establishing which roles his team would tackle, including the baseline job level of roles and caveats for high complexity that falls outside that baseline level. He then determined that in the early stages of this program, his team of non-executive focused sourcers would rotate through the groups on a predictable cadence to ensure that his team is well exposed to different parts of the business and that no one is acting as an island. So as I mentioned, Ali has always been the Swiss Army knife of the team, and he really wanted to build this level of flexibility as he was building this program. Next, he met with the selection, i.e. recruiting leads, and he honestly has this benefit of an established relationship with almost all of them, but he had to shift the relationship from the point of view of a sourcing partner to a leadership partner. He met with the recruiting leads to identify the number of roles that were on the docket for 2021 that fell within these baseline criteria he had set to map out his team requirements for its initial build. So once the baselines and the role estimates were in place, it was time to bring in the best people to tackle these challenges. Ali took a combined approach to hiring for this team. He ran an internal search, bringing on highly talented folks from both our support advisor and the technical sourcing teams. He also ran external searches, flexing his understanding of the talent with a capital T market and sourcing candidates for his team, engaging with high potential referrals from who else? The talent sourcing team, and bringing the best applicants into the process. The team's growth has really picked up since April of this year, growing from 1 person on the team in January to 6 today, with more growth coming. The really great thing about this team's build is that Ali was able to make good use of the tooling and infrastructure that was already in place. So GEM has provided an invaluable resource for this team's work as well, allowing for strong collaboration across the team in terms of reach out approaches and collaboration with hiring managers, using both the reviews feature for asynchronous collaboration and the send on behalf of function to increase candidate engagement. The leader sourcing program, as I mentioned before, was originally built for an R&D audience, but now extends to all leaders at Shopify. This flexibility allows this program to make good use of all of the resources that were assembled, and then to build upon them with live training sessions that are specific to the particular discipline in question. The commercial sourcing program is being built with a high level of leader engagement in proactive recruiting from its outset, rather than catching up to the engagement and interest that already exists. Okay, so what is the impact here? Well, first, GEM allows us to see the impact of our team's work at the touch of a button, and whoa, the impact is there. This small but mighty team is outpacing GEM's user average response rate of 35% by a considerable margin. And not only that, but the folks who respond are pretty interested in exploring opportunities with Shopify. Secondly, we view feedback as a gift at Shopify, and the feedback has been flowing in for this newly formed team and program. They've received a bunch of shoutouts already for their incredible partnership with the business and talent selection, solidifying them as strong partners and showcasing the power of the proactive search. And finally, we've seen 7 new Shop folk hired with this team's work. And recall that this team has really only picked up speed since April of this year. Despite the relative newness of this team and program, these 7 new specialized Shopify folk have joined the team, and they include some first-time and highly nuanced roles for Shopify. Who found and engaged Shopify's first ecosystem economist? Yeah, that's this team. There's so much more to come, though. Half of the team is still in onboarding, and we can't wait to see what they will accomplish once they are released to the wild. And now let's reflect on how this experience has impacted Ali as a leader. Well, first of all, he's been recognized for his years of dedication and championship of the space. He's long advocated for the non-R&D side of Shopify, and this is paying off in droves. And secondly, I've really pushed Ali to speak for what he's building. And he's now building his reputation as the voice of commercial sourcing with both talent and commercial leaders alike, and as a strategic partner in their decisions. He's similarly grown in confidence, both with these partners and within the talent attraction leadership team, ensuring that we don't fall into old patterns of thinking about R&D alone. So, as my pal Avita sang, where do we go from here? Well, we still have loads of work to do. So firstly, we're continuing to build these programs and teams. Spoiler alert, Shopify's hiring. We are onboarding a host of new team members. My teams alone in talent attraction have grown from 17 in January to 54 today. We are expanding into EMEA and APAC. And who knows, 2022 and 2022? Joking. I think. But what have I learned through all of this? Okay, so first, it's so important to pay close attention to what your leaders are passionate about and to keep a close eye on who in your team is showing readiness for people and program leadership. Second, Sarah Mai said it so well, and I will forever showcase this tweet from 2017. You need to build a strong understanding across your team that leadership is a craft unto its own, and that the first move into people leadership is not a promotion, it's a move into a new craft. And you, as their leader, need to be prepared to support them through this transition. Third, you can't and shouldn't champion everything in your team or org. And if you try, your team and your company will suffer. Strong leaders will build what you can't build alone. So you need to sponsor them to be the champions of what your company needs, and then you need to move out of their way. Fourth, capitalize on enthusiasm and foster trust with leaders to truly make building your company a shared responsibility. Engage the business early and often to ensure that you are building in ways that work for them. And finally, absolutely none of this is possible if you and your leaders forget to take care of yourselves, make time for rest, and to slow down to speed up. All right, that's it from me. So thank you so much again to GEM for inviting me to share these stories, to my honestly incredible team for being some of the best people on the planet, and to Shopify for continuing to give leaders like us the space to do what's best for merchants. I'm super happy to connect with anybody here at GEM Talent Summit or on the internet at Twitter or LinkedIn. So if you'd like to talk shop, please don't hesitate to drop me a line. Be well, everyone.